The October morning air carries a bitter chill as Sarah Martinez steps out of her weathered Honda Civic, her combat boots crunching against the fallen leaves scattered across the courthouse parking lot. Her German Shepherd Ranger emerges gracefully from the passenger seat, his intelligent brown eyes immediately scanning their surroundings with military precision. The red brick courthouse looms before them like a fortress, its American flag snapping in the wind, a sound that once filled Sarah with pride, but now sends tremors through her damaged nervous system. She pauses beside her car, taking deep breaths the way Dr. Phillips taught her during their therapy sessions. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out. The breathing technique usually calms her racing heart, but today nothing seems to work. Her hands shake as she adjusts Ranger's service vest, the one emblazoned with patches reading Medical Alert and Do Not Pet. 3 years ago, she never imagined she'd need such a companion. 3 years ago, she was Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez, respected medic, confident communicator, fierce protector of her fellow soldiers. The IED that changed everything happened on a Tuesday, just like today. The courthouse steps stretch endlessly upward, each one feeling like a mountain to climb. Sarah's legs, still bearing shrapnel scars, hidden beneath her dress pants, protest with each step. She chose her outfit carefully this morning, a navy blue blazer that conceals the tremor in her hands. Professional, but not too formal, hoping to appear stable and competent. Emma helped her pick it out last night, her 8-year-old daughter, displaying wisdom far beyond her years. "You look beautiful, Mama," Emma had whispered, using their special sign for strong as she spoke. Ranger thinks so too. The memory of her daughter's encouraging smile gives Sarah strength now, but it's quickly overshadowed by the reality of what's waiting inside. Michael is in there, probably surrounded by his family's expensive legal team, ready to paint her as an unfit mother. The irony cuts deep. She, who once saved lives on foreign battlefields, now can't speak up to save her own family. As they approach the entrance, whispers follow in their wake like a toxic cloud. Sarah's hearing, hypersensitive since her injury, picks up every cruel word. "That's the crazy veteran who can't talk. I heard she had a breakdown at the grocery store last month. Poor Emma. Having a mother like that. Each comment hits like physical blows, but Sarah keeps her chin up, her military training kicking in. Ranger presses closer to her left leg, his warmth anchor in the storm of judgment. He senses her rising anxiety, his training triggering automatic responses that have saved her countless times over the past 2 years. The courthouse lobby buzzes with activity lawyers in expensive suits checking their phones, families huddled together in nervous clusters, court officers directing traffic with practiced efficiency. Sarah spots her attorney, Maria Santos, near the information desk. Maria waves her over, her expression mixing professional confidence with genuine concern. "Sarah, you look ready for this," Maria says, her voice pitched low and reassuring. She's one of the few people who understands that Sarah hears and comprehends perfectly. Her trauma affects speech, not intelligence. "Remember, we've prepared for everything they might throw at us. Your documentation is solid. Emma's well-being speaks for itself, and your service record demonstrates your character." Sarah nods, managing a small smile. She pulls out her phone and types quickly, showing Maria the screen. "Thank you for believing in us." "Always," Maria replies, then glances toward the courtroom doors where Michael's entourage is gathering. "They're here early, probably trying to intimidate. Don't let them. You faced down insurgents in Afghanistan. You can handle one bitter ex-husband and his lawyers." Through the crowd, Sarah spots him. Michael Martinez still carries himself with the cocky confidence that initially attracted her 12 years ago, back when she was young and believed that charm equaled character. He's gained weight since their divorce, his once athletic frame now soft from his comfortable insurance job. His sister Carmen stands beside him, whispering in his ear while shooting venomous glances in Sarah's direction. The Martinez family never approved of Sarah's military career, viewing it as unladylike and dangerous for family stability. Now they're using that same service against her. Michael notices Sarah watching and approaches with his lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in a power suit who looks like she could cut glass with her stare. "Sarah," Michael says, his voice dripping with false concern. "I hoped we could avoid this unpleasantness. It's not too late to work out a reasonable visitation schedule. Emma needs stability, not this chaos." Sarah's throat constricts, the familiar feeling of words trapped behind an invisible wall. She wants to scream that she provides Emma with more stability than he ever could, that their home is filled with love and understanding, that Emma thrives under her care. Instead, only silence emerges. "See?" Michael's lawyer interjects smoothly. "Mrs. Martinez can't even respond to a simple greeting. How can the court expect her to handle parental responsibilities?" Ranger shifts position, placing himself slightly between Sarah and the hostile duo. His ears are alert, his body language clearly protective. Maria steps forward before the situation can escalate. "My client chooses not to engage in intimidation tactics," she states firmly. "Save your arguments for the courtroom, counselor." As they move away, Sarah's phone buzzes. A text from Emma, sent from her father's house where she spent the night. "I love you, Mama. Tell Ranger I love him too. See you soon." The purple heart emoji was Emma's invention, their secret code for courage. Sarah shows the message to Ranger, who seems to understand its significance, his tail giving the slightest wag. The bailiff announces that court will convene in 10 minutes. Sarah, Maria, and Ranger make their way toward courtroom 3B, passing beneath portraits of stern-faced judges from decades past. Each step brings them closer to a battle that will determine Emma's future, and whether a mother's love can overcome a society's prejudice against invisible wounds. As they enter the courtroom, Sarah catches sight of the American flag in the corner. Once, that symbol represented everything she fought for. Today, she prays it will represent justice for a warrior who sacrificed her voice in service to her country, and now fights the most important battle of her life in silence. The war for Emma's heart is about to begin. The gavel's sharp crack echoes through courtroom 3B like a gunshot, causing Sarah to flinch involuntarily. Judge Patricia Hendricks, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, surveys the packed courtroom. With the authority of someone who has presided over thousands of family disputes. Her black robes seem to absorb the morning light streaming through the tall windows, creating an imposing silhouette against the mahogany backdrop. The court will come to order in the matter of Martinez versus Martinez, concerning the custody of minor child Emma Rose Martinez. Judge Hendricks announces, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Counselor Davidson, you may present your opening statement for the petitioner. Margaret Davidson, Michael's attorney, rises with predatory grace. Her silver hair is styled in an expensive bob, her charcoal suit tailored to perfection, and her smile sharp enough to cut diamond. She represents everything Sarah has learned to fear: polished confidence backed by ruthless ambition. Davidson has built her career on high-profile custody cases, and her reputation for destroying opponents is legendary in this small Texas town. Your Honor, Davidson begins, her voice honey-smooth yet venomous. This case is about protecting an innocent child from an unstable environment created by her mother's severe psychological disabilities. She gestures toward Sarah with theatrical precision. Mrs. Sarah Martinez is a combat veteran suffering from debilitating post-traumatic stress disorder that has rendered her incapable of basic communication, a fundamental requirement for effective parenting. Sarah feels the familiar tightness in her chest, her breathing becoming shallow. Beside her, Ranger immediately responds to her elevated stress, shifting closer and applying gentle pressure against her leg. His training allows him to detect the subtle changes in her body chemistry that precede a panic attack. But even his presence can't stop the avalanche of accusations about to bury her. Davidson clicks a remote, and a large monitor descends from the ceiling. The evidence will show that Mrs. Martinez poses a clear and present danger to young Emma's psychological development. The first image appears security footage from Emma's elementary school, dated 3 months ago. Sarah recognizes it immediately with horror. The grainy video shows Sarah standing frozen in the school hallway during a parent-teacher conference. Her face pale and eyes wide with terror as concerned voices echo around her. A fire alarm had malfunctioned, its piercing wail triggering flashbacks to that devastating day in Afghanistan. In the footage, Sarah appears to be having what looks like a complete mental breakdown, her body rigid with panic while other parents move efficiently around her. As you can see, Your Honor, Davidson continues mercilessly, Mrs. Martinez became completely catatonic during a routine school event. Teachers reported that she was unresponsive for nearly 10 minutes, unable to communicate or function. Other children witnessed this episode, including her own daughter. Murmurs ripple through the gallery like poisonous wildfire. Sarah closes her eyes, remembering that awful day. The fire alarm shriek had transported her back to Forward Operating Base Phoenix, where alarms meant incoming mortar and the desperate race to save wounded soldiers. She hadn't been catatonic, she had been reliving the moment that shattered her world. But how could she explain that to people who had never experienced the hell of war? Davidson advances like a shark sensing blood. This is merely one incident among many documented cases of Mrs. Martinez's inability to function in normal social situations. More images flash on the screen. A blurry phone video of Sarah having a panic attack in the grocery store checkout, lying when a child's toy gun made a popping sound. A photo of her sitting alone at Emma's birthday party, seemingly disengaged while other parents socialized. Each image is carefully selected and manipulated to tell a story of dysfunction, stripping away all context and humanity. The grocery store incident occurred because a thoughtless parent allowed their child to play with a realistic-looking toy weapon in the cereal aisle. The birthday party photo was taken during the 5 minutes Sarah stepped outside to decompress. After successfully organizing and hosting the entire event, something Davidson conveniently omits. Your Honor, Davidson's voice rises with manufactured outrage. How can we entrust the safety and well-being of an 8-year-old child to a woman who cannot communicate with teachers during emergencies, who freezes during crisis situations, who requires the assistance of an animal to perform basic human functions? Sarah's hands clench into fists beneath the table. She wants to scream that Ranger isn't just an animal. He's her lifeline, her translator, her bridge back to the world she once navigated with confidence. The partnership they've built represents thousands of hours of training, dedication, and mutual trust. But the words remain trapped in her throat, prisoners of her trauma. Maria Santos objects, her voice sharp with indignation. Your Honor, opposing counsel is presenting misleading evidence without proper context. Overruled, Judge Hendricks says curtly. Continue, Counselor Davidson. Davidson smiles triumphantly and clicks to the next slide. Emma's school attendance record. The evidence shows a pattern of instability affecting the child directly. Emma Martinez has been tardy to school 47 times this academic year, often arriving disheveled and unprepared. Teachers report that the child frequently appears tired and withdrawn, classic signs of emotional neglect. The accusation hits Sarah like a physical blow. The tardiness occurred during her worst period of adjustment to new medications, when morning routines became monumental challenges. But Emma was never neglected, Every late arrival came with a carefully packed lunch, completed homework, and a mother's desperate love expressed through actions rather than words. Furthermore, Davidson continues, her voice building to a crescendo, child psychologists agree that children require consistent verbal communication for proper emotional development. Mrs. Martinez is selective. Mutism creates a household of silence that stunts young Emma's social growth. The child has developed unusual behavioral patterns, including excessive attachment to the service animal and regression to primitive nonverbal communication methods. Sarah feels her world crumbling. Davidson has weaponized every aspect of Ava, their unique family dynamic, twisting their strengths into weaknesses. The special sign language she and Emma created together, born from love and necessity, is now portrayed as developmental regression. Their deep bond with Ranger, which has brought stability and joy to their home, becomes evidence of unhealthy dependence. The courtroom's air grows thick with judgment. Sarah can feel eyes boring into her from every direction. Court officers, gallery observers, even the stenographer seems to regard her with pity. The silence that has become her refuge now feels like a prison, trapping her while her opponent destroys everything she holds dear. Davidson delivers her final blow with surgical precision. Your Honor, Mr. Michael Martinez offers Emma a stable, communicative household where she can develop normally without the constant specter of her mother's psychological episodes. We ask the court to grant full custody to protect this innocent child from further psychological damage. As Davidson returns to her seat with predatory satisfaction, Sarah realizes she's drowning in plain sight. Every breath feels stolen, every heartbeat a countdown to losing Emma forever. Beside her, Ranger whines softly, sensing her distress, but unable to protect her from this particular enemy. The perfect storm has begun, and Sarah Martinez, warrior, mother, survivor, faces the fight of her life armed only with silence. The courtroom holds its breath as 8-year-old Emma Rose Martinez walks toward the witness stand, her small patent leather shoes clicking against the polished wooden floor like a metronome, counting down to judgment. She wears the navy blue dress Sarah bought for school pictures last month, the one with tiny white flowers that Emma said made her feel fancy and brave. Her dark hair, braided with the precision only a mother's loving hands can achieve, gleams under the fluorescent lights as she passes her father's table without so much as a glance. Michael shifts uncomfortably in his seat, perhaps recognizing that his daughter's loyalty doesn't automatically belong to him despite months of legal maneuvering. His sister Carmen whispers urgently in his ear, but Michael waves her away, his confident facade beginning to show hairline cracks. Judge Hendricks leans forward with genuine concern as the bailiff helps Emma into the witness chair, adjusting the microphone to her small stature. Emma, do you understand why you're here today? The judge asks gently, her stern courtroom demeanor softening in the presence of the child whose future hangs in the balance. Yes, ma'am, Emma replies, her voice clear and steady despite her young age. You need to decide where I should live. But I already know where I belong. She glances toward Sarah with such fierce love that several gallery observers audibly gasp. Sarah's eyes fill with tears she doesn't dare let fall, afraid that any display of emotion will be twisted against her by Davidson's ruthless legal machine. Maria Santos approaches the witness stand with careful steps, knowing that this testimony could make or break their case. Emma, can you tell the court about living with your mother? Emma's face lights up like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. My mama is the best mama in the whole world, she begins, speaking directly to Judge Hendricks with the fearless honesty only children possess. She doesn't talk with words like other grown-ups, but she talks with her heart, and her heart is so loud that I can hear it from across our whole house. The courtroom stirs with interest. This isn't the testimony anyone expected from a supposedly neglected child. Davidson frowns, clearly recalculating her strategy as Emma continues with, gathering momentum. People think Mama is broken because she doesn't make sounds with her mouth. Emma explains, her 8-year-old logic cutting through adult prejudices like a sword through silk. But she's not broken, she's just different. Like how some people write with their left hand and some people write with their right hand. Mama talks with her hands and her eyes and her hugs. Emma demonstrates their secret communication, her small hands moving in graceful gestures that speak of countless hours of patient practice between mother and daughter. This means I love you, she says, forming a complex sign with her fingers. This means sweet dreams. This means you're my brave girl. Mama taught me all of these, because regular words aren't big enough for how much she loves me. Sarah watches in amazement as her daughter reveals the intricate language they've built. Together, a communication system, born from necessity, but perfected by love. It's more sophisticated than simple sign language. It's their own creation, incorporating gestures, expressions, and movements that carry emotional weight no dictionary could define. Emma, Maria continues carefully, some people have said your mother can't take care of you properly because she doesn't speak. What do you think about that? Emma's expression grows serious, her young face displaying wisdom that should belong to someone much older. Those people don't know my mama at all, she states with quiet authority. My mama never misses my bedtime stories. She acts them out with funny faces and voices in her head that only I can see. She helps with my homework every single night, writing out explanations when I don't understand math problems. She braids my hair every morning and makes my lunch with little notes that have pictures instead of words. The child's testimony paints a picture so different from Davidson's presentation that the courtroom seems to exist in two separate realities. Emma describes a home filled with creativity, patience, and profound maternal devotion, the kind of environment most children only dream about. And Ranger? Maria prompts gently. Emma's entire demeanor transforms with pure joy. Ranger is like having a superhero brother who's also a dog, she exclaims, causing several courtroom observers to smile, despite the serious proceedings. He knows when Mama needs help, but he also plays fetch with me and lets me use him as a pillow during movie nights. He's not just Mama's helper, he's our family. She turns to address Judge Hendricks directly, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carries throughout the silent courtroom. Can I tell you a secret, Judge Lady? Judge Hendricks nods, clearly charmed by this remarkable child. Sometimes at night, when Mama thinks I'm sleeping, I hear her crying. Emma reveals, her voice growing soft with compassion. Not loud crying, but quiet crying that sounds like rain. And Ranger always knows. He goes to her and puts his big head on her lap, and then the rain stops. That's when I know it's safe to go give her a hug. The emotional weight of this revelation settles over the courtroom like a heavy blanket. Here is a child who not only understands her mother's struggles but actively participates in the healing process, a level of emotional intelligence that speaks to exceptional parenting rather than neglect. Emma, Maria continues, her voice thick with emotion. Your father loves you too. Why do you want to stay with your mother? Emma considers this question with the seriousness it deserves. Daddy loves me with his words, but Mama loves me with her whole self, she explains with startling clarity. When I'm with Daddy, I have to be different. I have to talk normal and act normal, and not use our special language. But with Mama, I can be exactly who I am, even the parts that are sad or scared or silly. She pauses, gathering courage for her next revelation. Daddy gets mad when Mama can't answer him. He says mean things about her being messed up, but I don't think Mama is messed up. I think the world is messed up for not understanding how beautiful quiet love can be. Michael's face flushes with embarrassment and anger. His lawyer places a restraining hand on his arm as he starts to rise in protest. The damage is done. His daughter has just exposed his intolerance and impatience with surgical precision. Emma's final statement rings through the courtroom like a bell tolling truth. Your Honor, my mama and Ranger and me, we're not broken. We're just different. And different doesn't mean wrong. Different means special. We're a special family, and breaking yous apart would be the wrongest thing in the whole wide world. As Emma steps down from the witness stand, walking back to her seat with dignity far beyond her years, the courtroom remains in stunned silence. In 10 minutes of testimony, this extraordinary child has dismantled months of legal strategy, revealing a truth more powerful than any expert witness or psychological evaluation. Judge Hendricks watches Emma take her seat between Sarah and Maria, noting how naturally the child's hand finds Ranger's fur, how instinctively she leans toward her mother's warmth. The triangle they form, woman, child, and loyal companion, suddenly looks less like dysfunction and more like a family that has learned to thrive against impossible odds. The secret is out. Love doesn't require words to be profound, and some of the strongest families are forged in silence and sealed with understanding. The afternoon sun slants through the courtroom windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor as Margaret Davidson prepares for her counterattack. Emma's testimony has clearly rattled her carefully constructed case, but Davidson didn't build her reputation by crumbling under pressure. She adjusts her suit jacket with predatory precision, her cold blue eyes scanning her notes like a general reviewing battle plans. Your Honor, Davidson announces with renewed venom, the defense would have you believe that a child's romantic notions about her mother's condition somehow supersede medical and psychological evidence. I call Dr. Rebecca Chun to provide expert testimony about the realities of severe PTSD and its impact on parenting capacity. Dr. Chun enters the courtroom like a storm cloud given human form. Her black hair is pulled back in a severe bun, her wire-rimmed glasses perched on a sharp nose that seems designed for looking down on others. She wears a charcoal gray suit that matches her demeanor, professional, cold, and utterly without warmth. Her credentials are impressive and intimidating. Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins residency, 20 years specializing in trauma psychology. As Dr. Chun settles into the witness chair, Sarah feels her stomach drop. She remembers this woman from the court-ordered evaluation 6 months ago, the sterile office, the clinical questions, the way Dr. Chun regarded her like a specimen under a microscope rather than a human being in pain. Dr. Chun, Davidson begins smoothly, please explain your professional relationship with the defendant. I conducted a comprehensive psychological evaluation of Mrs. Martinez at the court's request. Dr. Chun responds, her voice carrying the authority of academic achievement and professional arrogance. I administered multiple standardized tests and interviewed the subject for approximately 4 hours over 2 sessions. Sarah remembers those sessions as torture. Dr. Chun had shown no patience for Sarah's communication difficulties, becoming visibly frustrated when Sarah couldn't respond verbally to rapid-fire questions. The doctor had dismissed Ranger entirely, treating his presence as evidence of Sarah's inability to function independently. What were your findings, Doctor? Davidson prompts, clearly relishing what's coming. Dr. Chun opens her file with theatrical precision. Mrs. Martinez presents with severe, treatment-resistant PTSD characterized by selective mutism, hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation, and social withdrawal. Her condition has progressed beyond typical combat trauma into a chronic, debilitating disorder that significantly impairs her ability to function in society. Each clinical term hits Sarah like a physical blow. The words reduce her complexity as a human being to a list of symptoms, stripping away everything that makes her who she is: her courage, her love for Emma, her daily battles to build a meaningful life despite her challenges. In your professional opinion, Davidson continues, how does this condition affect Mrs. Martinez's parenting abilities? Dr. Chun leans forward, clearly enjoying her moment of authority. Severely compromised parenting is inevitable with this level of dysfunction. Children require consistent, reliable, verbally communicative caregivers. Mrs. Martinez's inability to engage in normal social interactions creates an environment of chronic stress and uncertainty for any child in her care. The courtroom buzzes with whispers. Sarah feels the walls closing in as Dr. Chun systematically dismantles everything she's worked to build. Beside her, Ranger senses her rising panic and moves closer, but even his presence can't stop the avalanche of professional condemnation. Can you elaborate on the specific risks to the child? Davidson asks, her voice dripping with false concern. Certainly, Dr. Chun responds with clinical detachment. Children of parents with severe PTSD show elevated rates of anxiety disorders, depression, and social maladjustment. They often become parentified, forced to take on adult emotional responsibilities far beyond their developmental capacity. Young Emma is already displaying classic signs of this dynamic. Sarah's hands begin to shake. The description makes their beautiful relationship sound like child abuse, their special communication system like emotional manipulation. Everything pure and loving in their life together is being twisted into pathology. The reliance on a service animal further complicates the situation. Dr. Chun continues mercilessly. While such animals can provide temporary support, they create unhealthy dependency patterns. Mrs. Martinez has essentially abdicated her parental responsibilities to a dog, placing an impossible burden on both the animal and her daughter. Maria Santos objects furiously, but Judge Hendricks allows the testimony to continue. Sarah feels herself beginning to hyperventilate, her vision blurring at the edges. The fluorescent lights seem too bright, the air too thin. Her mind starts playing tricks on her for a moment. The courtroom transforms into the bombed-out medical tent where her world first shattered. Dr. Chun delivers her final verdict with surgical precision. In my professional opinion, Mrs. Martinez poses a clear and present danger to her daughter's psychological development. Her condition is chronic, treatment-resistant, and unlikely to improve significantly. The child would be far better served in a stable, traditionally communicative household. The words hit Sarah like an IED explosion. Her breathing becomes rapid and shallow, her heart racing as fight-or-flight responses flood her system. The courtroom starts to spin, faces blurring together into a hostile mass of judgment. She tries to ground herself using Dr. Phillips' techniques. But Dr. Chun's clinical condemnation has shattered her carefully constructed defenses. Ranger immediately responds to her crisis, moving into position to perform deep pressure therapy. His training kicks in automatically. He can sense the chemical changes in Sarah's body that precede a full panic attack. But as he moves to help her, Davidson pounces on the moment like a predator sensing wounded prey. Your Honor, Davidson announces triumphantly. Please observe what's happening at the defense table. Mrs. Martinez is having what appears to be a psychological episode. Right here in court, proving Dr. Chun's testimony about her instability. This is exactly the kind of unpredictable behavior that makes her unfit for custody. The courtroom erupts in whispers and gasps. Sarah feels every eye in the room boring into her, watching her fall apart in the most public way possible. She tries to speak, to defend herself, to explain that this is exactly what Dr. Chun's cruel testimony was designed to achieve. But no words come, only the familiar silence that has become both her refuge and her prison. She can't even respond to basic stress without requiring the intervention of an animal. Davidson continues with mock sympathy. How can this court possibly entrust the care of a vulnerable child to someone who requires constant monitoring and support? Sarah realizes with growing horror that she's trapped in a catch-22 of cruel design. If she remains silent, she appears unresponsive and unfit. If she shows emotion, she appears unstable and dangerous. If Ranger helps her, she appears dependent and incapable. Every response plays into Davidson's narrative of dysfunction and failure. Judge Hendricks calls for a brief recess, but the damage is spreading like wildfire through the courtroom. Sarah can hear the whispered conversations, the clicking of phones as people text about the crazy veteran having a breakdown. Her worst nightmare is coming true. She's being defeated not by her lack of love for Emma, but by the very wounds she sustained while serving her country. As the bailiff helps clear the courtroom, Sarah slumps in her chair, feeling more alone than she has since those first dark days after the explosion. Dr. Chun's testimony has accomplished what enemy fire couldn't. It has broken her spirit and painted her as a danger to the person she loves most in the world. The breaking point has arrived, and Sarah Martinez Warrior, mother, survivor, faces the terrifying possibility that love might not be enough to overcome the weight of professional prejudice and societal misunderstanding. In this moment of ultimate vulnerability, she must find strength she's not sure she still possesses to save the family that means everything to her. The recess ends with the sharp crack of Judge Hendricks' gavel, the sound slicing through the courtroom's electric tension like lightning splitting a storm-darkened sky. Sarah returns to her seat on unsteady legs, her face pale but determined. The panic attack has passed, leaving behind a crystalline clarity she hasn't felt in months. Sometimes, hitting rock bottom provides the solid foundation needed to push back up toward the light. Maria Santos rises from the defense table with the controlled fury of a warrior queen, preparing for her final battle. Her usually immaculate appearance shows subtle signs of the stress they've all endured. A strand of dark hair escaped from her professional bun, her knuckles white as she grips her notes. But her voice, when she speaks, carries the unwavering strength of someone fighting for justice itself. "Your Honor," Maria begins, her words ringing with passionate conviction. "The prosecution has painted my client as a victim of her own service to this country. They have taken a woman who sacrificed her voice literally in defense of American values and turned her silence into a weapon against her. This is not justice. This is persecution of our nation's heroes." The courtroom's energy shifts perceptibly. Maria's opening salvo has reframed the entire narrative, transforming Sarah from defendant to wounded warrior, deserving of honor, not condemnation. Several gallery members sit straighter, their expressions changing from judgment to curiosity. Dr. Chun would have you believe that PTSD makes someone unfit for parenthood. Maria continues, her voice building like a symphony reaching crescendo. But I submit to this court evidence that tells a different story, not of disability, but of a mother's love transcending every obstacle placed in her path. Maria approaches the projection screen with purpose, clicking through a series of images that Davidson's team tried desperately to suppress. The first photograph shows Emma's bedroom, not the chaotic space one might expect from a neglected child, but a sanctuary of creativity and love. Hand-painted murals cover the walls, depicting scenes from fairy tales that Sarah illustrated without speaking a single word. Every detail speaks of hours spent in patient, loving creation. Mrs. Martinez may not speak, Maria declares, but she communicates through art, through action, through the 1,000 small acts of devotion that make a house a home. The next image shows Emma's perfectly organized school supplies, each item labeled with pictographs that transform mundane objects into a treasure map of learning. Homework charts decorated with stickers and encouraging drawings line the walls, evidence of a mother who engages with her daughter's education in ways that go far beyond verbal communication. The prosecution table grows visibly uncomfortable as Maria presents photo after photo that contradicts their narrative. Emma's science fair project, a detailed poster about service, Animals that won first place displays sophisticated research that could only have been accomplished with dedicated parental support. Birthday party photos show not the isolated scene Davidson presented, but a house full of laughing children, with Sarah orchestrating elaborate games through gestures and facial expressions that have the kids in stitches. The prosecution has suggested that my client's relationship with her service dog represents unhealthy dependency. Maria states, her voice dripping with controlled anger. But Ranger isn't just a medical device. He's a bridge that connects my client to the world, allowing her to function not as a burden, but as a contributing member of society. Maria presents Ranger's training, credentials hundreds of hours of specialized education that cost over $30,000, funded entirely by Sarah's careful saving and sacrifice. His certifications span medical alert, crowd control, mobility, assistance, and emotional support. This isn't a pet playing dress up. This is a highly trained professional whose partnership with Sarah represents one of the most successful human-animal collaborations in the state's service dog program. Furthermore, Maria continues, building momentum like a locomotive gaining speed. The court has heard expert testimony from Dr. Chun, who spent exactly 4 hours with my client. But we have not heard from the people who see Sarah Martinez in action every single day. She produces a thick folder containing dozens of letters testimonials from Emma's teachers, neighbors, other military families, and community members who have witnessed Sarah's parenting firsthand. Maria reads selected excerpts that paint a picture, so different from the prosecution's narrative that they might be describing entirely different people. Sarah Martinez is the most attentive mother I've encountered in 15 years of teaching. Maria quotes from Emma's third-grade teacher. She communicates through detailed notes, always knows exactly what her daughter needs, and has created innovative ways to help Emma excel academically. Another letter from their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Sarah shovels my driveway every winter without being asked, brings me homemade soup when I'm sick, and has raised the most polite, well-adjusted child on our entire street. Emma is a reflection of her mother's values, kind, responsible, and wise beyond her years. The testimonials keep coming, each one chipping away at the prosecution's carefully constructed image of dysfunction. Sarah's PTSD support group leader describes her as a natural mentor to newly returned veterans. The director of Emma's after-school program praises Sarah's volunteer work, noting her unique ability to connect with children who have communication challenges of their own. Your Honor, Maria says, her voice thick with emotion. We measure parenting by results, not by methods. Emma Martinez is thriving academically, socially, and emotionally. She displays empathy, intelligence, and resilience that most adults would envy. These qualities didn't emerge from neglect or dysfunction. They grew from the rich soil of unconventional but profound maternal love. As Maria speaks, Sarah feels strength returning to her limbs, courage flowing back into her heart. For months, she has allowed others to define her by her limitations. But Maria is showing the court and reminding Sarah herself of all the ways she has adapted, overcome, and excelled as a mother despite extraordinary challenges. But Maria isn't finished. She turns to face Sarah with an expression of gentle encouragement, knowing that this moment will require everything Sarah has left to give. Mrs. Martinez, Maria says softly, this court has heard testimony about your limitations. Would you like to show them your strengths? The courtroom falls silent as Sarah slowly rises from her chair. Every eye focuses on her as she stands there, trembling slightly but resolute. This is the moment she has dreaded and avoided for months, being asked to speak publicly about her deepest struggles and greatest triumphs. Judge Hendricks leans forward, her expression compassionate but firm. Mrs. Martinez, you are not required to testify on your own behalf. Do you understand? Sarah nods, then looks down at Ranger, who has been watching her with alert intelligence throughout the proceedings. Their eyes meet, and in that moment, an understanding passes between them that transcends species barriers. Ranger has been her voice when words failed, her strength when courage faltered, her bridge back to a world that sometimes seems determined to reject her. Without speaking, Sarah places her hand on Ranger's head and makes a subtle gesture, not one of the commands Maria has witnessed before, but something deeper, more profound. A signal that says not help me, but trust me. What happens next will either save her family or destroy her last remaining hope. But for the first time since entering this courtroom, Sarah Martinez feels ready to fight back with everything. She has using weapons her opponents never saw coming. The impossible defense is about to begin, and it will rely not on words, but on the unbreakable bonds forged between a mother, her daughter, and a loyal companion who helped them build a new kind of family from the wreckage of war. The courtroom exists in a bubble of perfect silence as Sarah stands beside her chair, every eye trained on her with the intensity of spectators watching a high-wire act without a net. Her hand rests gently on Ranger's head, her fingers moving in what appears to be a simple caress, but is actually something far more profound, a command sequence so subtle and sophisticated that even professional dog trainers might miss its significance. Judge Hendricks watches with growing fascination as Sarah's breathing steadies, her posture straightening with each passing second. The panic and desperation that marked her earlier breakdown have transformed into something else, entirely a quiet confidence that seems to radiate from her very core. Whatever she's about to attempt, she's not doing it from desperation, but from strength. Ranger, Sarah whispers, her voice barely audible but carrying absolute authority. Mission Protocol 7. The words themselves mean nothing to the courtroom observers, but their effect on Ranger is immediate and extraordinary. The German Shepherd's entire demeanor shifts from passive support animal to active partner, his intelligent brown eyes scanning the room with tactical precision. He moves with purpose toward Judge Hendricks' bench. But this isn't the uncertain gait of a pet, following random commands. This is the controlled, deliberate movement of a highly trained professional executing a complex task. Margaret Davidson starts to object, rising from her chair with alarm. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Sit down, Counselor, Judge Hendricks commands sharply, her eyes never leaving the remarkable scene unfolding before her. Her military background tells her she's witnessing something significant, something that might fundamentally change her understanding of the case. Ranger reaches the judicial bench and sits at perfect attention, his back straight and eyes focused with laser intensity. From a hidden pocket in his service vest, a compartment so cleverly concealed that even the court officers hadn't noticed it during security screening, he retrieves a leather document portfolio with his teeth. The portfolio is weathered, but carefully maintained, bearing small embossed letters that read E.R.M., Emma Rose Martinez. The courtroom gasps collectively as Ranger places the portfolio at Judge Hendricks' feet with the precision of a soldier delivering critical intelligence. But he's not finished. Moving with the same purposeful grace, he returns to the gallery where Emma sits wide-eyed with wonder and pride. Without any visible command from Sarah, Ranger gently takes Emma's small hand in his mouth and guides her forward, his actions speaking of protection, unity, and an intelligence that transcends simple animal training. Emma walks alongside Ranger toward her mother, and as they approach, something magical happens. The three of them, Sarah, Emma, and Ranger, form a triangle of connection so perfect and natural that it looks choreographed, yet clearly isn't. Emma's hand finds her mother's, while her other hand rests on Ranger's neck. The positioning isn't random. It's the physical manifestation of a family unit that has learned to communicate on levels most families never achieve. Dr. Chun sits forward in the witness chair, her professional skepticism warring with obvious fascination. This isn't the dysfunction she described in her testimony. This is a demonstration of partnership, communication, and trust operating at extraordinary levels. Judge Hendricks opens the portfolio with trembling hands, her judicial composure cracking as she discovers its contents. The first item is a hand-drawn family portrait by Emma, but it's not a typical child's artwork. The drawing shows remarkable detail and emotional sophistication. Sarah, depicted not as broken or silent, but as a figure radiating strength and love, with Ranger portrayed as a bridge connecting mother and daughter through flowing lines of energy and connection. Beneath the artwork lies documentation that Davidson's legal team either missed or deliberately suppressed. Report cards showing Emma's consistent academic excellence across 3 years. Medical records proving Emma's perfect physical and emotional health under Sarah's care. But it's the next item that changes everything. A letter written in Emma's careful 8-year-old handwriting, addressed to future people who might not understand my family. Judge Hendricks reads aloud, her voice thick with emotion. My mama doesn't talk with her mouth because a bad bomb hurt her when she was helping soldiers. But she talks with her hands and her eyes and her heart. She reads me stories by acting them out. She helps with my homework by drawing pictures that make math fun. She makes the best pancakes in the world and braids my hair better than any mama. At school, Ranger isn't just a dog. He's like having a brother who can do magic tricks to help mama feel safe. We are different, but we are happy and loved and perfect the way we are. The letter continues with descriptions of their daily life that paint a picture so rich and loving that even Davidson's stern expression begins to soften. Emma writes about Saturday morning adventures where Sarah teaches her to identify birds without saying their names, using hand gestures and drawings instead. She describes bedtime rituals where Sarah acts out entire fairy tales, using facial expressions and movements that bring stories to life more vividly than any spoken word could achieve. But the final document in the portfolio delivers the knockout blow to the prosecution's case. It's a formal evaluation from the National Service Dog Training Institute, signed by their chief behavioral specialist, Dr. Amanda Torres, a name that carries significant weight in the service animal community. The evaluation details Ranger's extraordinary training, but more importantly, it documents the remarkable partnership he's formed with Sarah and Emma. The Martinez Family Unit represents one of the most successful human-animal collaborations in our program's 15-year history, Dr. Torres wrote. Mrs. Martinez has not only adapted to life with PTSD, she has created innovative communication methods that her daughter has embraced enthusiastically. Their home environment shows none of the stress indicators typically associated with trauma-affected families. Instead, we observe a high-functioning unit that has turned potential limitations into unique strengths. The evaluation includes photographs taken during surprise home visits, images that show Emma helping Sarah train Ranger in new commands, Sarah patiently teaching Emma sign language, and most powerfully, all three of them working together on Emma's school projects with a level of cooperation and joy that speaks of genuine family harmony. Judge Hendricks looks up from the documents to find Sarah standing straighter than she has all day, Emma beaming with pride beside her, and Ranger maintaining perfect attention. 3 beings, united by bonds, forged through adversity, and strengthened by unconditional love. Mrs. Martinez, Judge Hendricks says carefully, did Ranger retrieve these documents on his own initiative? Sarah shakes her head, and for the first time in court, attempts to speak. Her voice is barely a whisper, but in the absolute silence of the courtroom, every word carries clearly. Ranger follows my commands, Your Honor, but these documents, Emma and I prepared them together. She wanted to make sure someone understood our family if something happened to me. The admission reveals the depth of their partnership, of a child and mother working together to document their love and success, preparing for the possibility that the world might not understand their unconventional but extraordinarily effective family dynamic. As Sarah's words fade into silence, the courtroom remains frozen in a moment of perfect clarity. What began as a custody hearing about a disabled veteran's fitness to parent has become a revelation about the infinite forms that love and family can take when nurtured by patience, creativity, and unshakable devotion. The miracle moment has arrived, and nothing will ever be the same. Judge Patricia Hendricks sets down the portfolio with hands that tremble slightly. Her 27 years on the bench, having prepared her for many things, but not for the profound paradigm shift she's experiencing in this moment. The evidence before her doesn't just contradict the prosecution's case, it completely reframes the fundamental question from, can Sarah Martinez parent effectively? To, how did we so catastrophically misunderstand what effective parenting looks like? The silence in the courtroom stretches like a held breath as Judge Hendricks removes her reading glasses and studies the three figures standing before her. Sarah's posture has transformed from the hunched, defensive stance of earlier testimony to something that radiates quiet strength. Emma stands beside her mother with fierce pride, her small hand intertwined with Sarah's in a gesture that speaks of absolute trust and unshakable bonds. And Ranger, positioned protectively between them, maintains perfect attention while somehow managing to convey an almost human sense of dignity and purpose. Dr. Chun, Judge Hendricks says, her voice carrying a new note of authority, please approach the bench. The psychiatrist rises uncertainly, her earlier professional confidence evaporating like morning mist. She clearly recognizes that something fundamental has shifted in the courtroom's dynamics, but her rigid academic framework struggles to process what she's witnessed. Doctor, you testified that Mrs. Martinez's condition makes her an unfit parent. Judge Hendricks continues, holding up Dr. Torres's evaluation. Yet this assessment from the National Service Dog Training Institute, an organization whose credibility is unquestioned in the medical community, presents a completely different picture. How do you reconcile these contradictory findings? Dr. Chun's mouth opens and closes soundlessly, a cruel irony given her earlier condemnation of Sarah's mutism. The controlled, clinical environment where she conducted her evaluation suddenly seems woefully inadequate compared to the comprehensive, long-term observation documented in the portfolio. Your Honor, Dr. Chun begins hesitantly, my evaluation was conducted under standard protocols that clearly failed to capture the reality of this family's daily life. Judge Hendricks interrupts sharply. Dr. Torres's assessment includes documentation spanning 18 months with multiple home visits, school consultations, and community observations. Your 4-hour evaluation in a sterile office setting appears to have missed the most important elements of Mrs. Martinez's parenting entirely. The judge turns her attention to the gallery, where she notices something that speaks volumes about the case's true dynamics. While Michael sits alone at the prosecution table, surrounded only by his paid legal team, Sarah's side of the courtroom has quietly filled with community members who weren't there during the morning session. Emma's teachers, their neighbors, fellow veterans from Sarah's support group, and parents from Emma's school have appeared as if drawn by some invisible force of solidarity. Margaret Davidson attempts to salvage her crumbling case. Your Honor, the prosecution maintains that regardless of community support, Mrs. Martinez's documented psychological episodes pose ongoing risks. Counselor Davidson, Judge Hendricks, cuts her off with icy precision. I've reviewed your evidence of these so-called episodes, and I find them deeply troubling, not because of what they reveal about Mrs. Martinez, but because of how they've been manipulated and presented out of context. The judge opens her own file, producing documentation that makes Davidson's face drain of color. I took the liberty of requesting the complete incident reports from the school and local authorities, not just the selective excerpts you presented. The grocery store incident you described as evidence of instability? Mrs. Martinez was actually preventing a potentially dangerous situation when an unsupervised child was waving a realistic toy weapon in a crowded area. Her episode was a trained medic's appropriate response to what appeared to be an active threat. Judge Hendricks continues methodically dismantling the prosecution's narrative. The school incident you presented showed Mrs. Martinez freezing during a fire alarm malfunction. But the complete report indicates that once the alarm stopped, she immediately checked on her daughter and other children, then helped evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. Her momentary reaction to an unexpected loud noise hardly constitutes parental unfitness. Sarah feels tears streaming down her cheeks as the truth finally emerges from beneath layers of prejudice and misrepresentation. For months, she's carried the shame of these incidents, believing that her trauma responses made her a failure as a mother. But Judge Hendricks is revealing something she never dared hope, that her reactions were not only understandable, but often heroic. Furthermore, the judge continues, her voice building with controlled anger. I find it deeply disturbing that a combat veteran's service-related injuries have been weaponized against her in a custody proceeding. Mrs. Martinez didn't choose to have PTSD. She acquired it while serving her country in one of the most dangerous combat zones in the world. To use those wounds against her now represents a profound betrayal of our obligations to those who served. Michael shifts uncomfortably in his seat as Judge Hendricks' gaze settles on him with laser-like intensity. Mr. Martinez, you were married to this woman for 6 years. You witnessed her military service, her dedication to healing others, her love for your daughter. Did it never occur to you that her condition might be managed with support rather than condemned with cruelty? Michael's lawyer whispers urgently in his ear, but he pushes her away and stands. Your Honor, I just want what's best for Emma. Sarah single quotes difficulties make everything so complicated. I thought Emma would be better off in a normal environment. Normal, Judge Hendricks repeats, the word hanging in the air like an accusation. Mr. Martinez, what exactly do you consider normal? A household where a child learns that differences should be hidden rather than celebrated? Where love is conditional on conformity to arbitrary social expectations? Where a family member's struggles are seen as embarrassments rather than opportunities for growth and understanding? The judge's questions cut through the courtroom like surgical instruments, exposing the rot at the heart of Michael's case. His desire for normal reveals itself as a rejection of anything that requires effort, patience, or unconditional love. Emma Martinez, Judge Hendricks addresses the child directly, has demonstrated emotional intelligence, empathy, and resilience that most adults would envy. These qualities didn't develop in spite of her mother's condition. They developed because of how her mother has chosen to handle that condition. Sarah Martinez has created a home environment where differences are not just tolerated, but transformed into strengths. Dr. Chun attempts one final intervention. Your Honor, while I acknowledge that my evaluation may have been incomplete, the medical literature clearly indicates... Dr. Judge Hendricks interrupts firmly. The medical literature also indicates that stable, loving environments promote child development far more effectively than households that prioritize superficial normalcy over genuine connection. This child's academic performance, social development, and emotional well-being all suggest she's thriving under her mother's care. The judge pauses, studying the complete file that now lies open before her. Inside are dozens of additional documents that paint a picture radically different from the prosecution's narrative. Thank you notes from other military families Sarah has mentored through their own PTSD journeys. Letters from veterans advocacy organizations praising her volunteer work. Testimonials from therapy dog training programs where she and Ranger volunteer to help other trauma survivors. The evidence before this court Judge Hendricks declares, her voice ringing with conviction, demonstrates that Sarah Martinez has not only overcome extraordinary challenges to become an effective parent, she has redefined what effective parenting can look like when approached with creativity, dedication, and boundless love. As the judge's words sink in, the courtroom atmosphere undergoes a complete transformation. What began as a trial of Sarah's fitness to parent has become a celebration of her extraordinary achievements against impossible odds. The new understanding isn't just about one family's triumph. It's about society's need to expand its definition of what strength, communication, and love can look like. The final verdict awaits, but the most important battle has already been won. Sarah Martinez has proven that heroism comes in many forms, and that the greatest victories are often achieved not with words, but with the quiet persistence of a mother's unbreakable love. The late afternoon sun slants through the courtroom windows, casting golden light across the packed gallery as Judge Patricia Hendricks prepares to deliver her verdict. The air itself seems to hold its breath, charged with the weight of a decision that will ripple far beyond this single family's fate. Sarah sits straighter than she has in months, her hand resting on Emma's shoulder while Ranger maintains his vigilant position at their feet, a trinity of love that has weathered storms most families could never imagine. Judge Hendricks rises, her black robes flowing like the wings of justice itself. The silver in her hair catches the light as she surveys the courtroom one final time, her gaze taking in the community members who have quietly filled the gallery. In support of Sarah, the prosecution table where Michael sits increasingly isolated, and most importantly, the remarkable family unit that has challenged every assumption about what strength and love can look like. In my 27 years on this bench, Judge Hendricks begins, her voice carrying the authority of countless decisions, but also a new note of profound respect. I have presided over thousands of custody cases. I have seen families torn apart by addiction, abuse, neglect, and dysfunction. I have witnessed the devastating effects of genuine parental failure on innocent children. But I have never until today seen a family unit so criminally misunderstood by the very system designed to protect it. The words hang in the air like thunder rolling across a battlefield. Margaret Davidson's confident expression crumbles as she realizes the complete collapse of her carefully constructed case. Dr. Chun shifts uncomfortably in her seat, perhaps finally understanding the profound inadequacy of her clinical assessment. Sarah Martinez, Judge Hendricks continues, turning her full attention to the woman who has endured months of legal assault on her character and capabilities. You are a combat veteran who sacrificed not just your voice, but your sense of safety, your peace of mind, and your ability to navigate the world without assistance. You did this not for personal glory, but in service to ideals larger than yourself: freedom, justice, and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Sarah feels tears sliding down her cheeks as the judge's words wash over her like absolution after months of condemnation. Beside her, Emma reaches up to squeeze her mother's hand, their special signal for "You are brave, and I love you," rather than allowing your service-connected injuries to defeat you. Judge Hendricks declares, her voice building with passionate conviction, "You have transformed them into tools of extraordinary parenting. You have created communication methods that transcend words, built bonds that go deeper than speech, and raised a daughter who displays the kind of emotional intelligence and resilience that most parents only dream of achieving." The judge pauses, consulting her notes one final time before delivering the verdict that will reshape 3 lives forever. Emma Martinez is not a child at risk. She is a child thriving under the care of a mother who has redefined what love looks like when expressed through action rather than words. Her academic excellence, her emotional maturity, her capacity for empathy and understanding, these are not accidents. They are the direct result of being raised by a woman who shows love in 1,000 different ways every single day. Michael's face grows pale as he realizes the complete reversal of his expected triumph. His sister Carmen whispers urgently in his ear, but he waves her away, perhaps finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what he has tried to destroy. Ranger, Judge Hendricks continues, acknowledging the German Shepherd, who has become far more than a service animal, represents one of the most successful human-animal partnerships I have ever encountered. His presence in this family is not evidence of dependency. It is proof of Sarah Martinez's commitment to using every available resource to provide the best possible environment for her daughter. The judge's voice grows stern as she addresses the prosecution's fundamental misunderstanding. This court rejects entirely the notion that different methods of communication constitute inferior parenting. Mrs. Martinez may not speak in traditional ways, but she communicates with a depth and clarity that puts many speaking parents to shame. Her daughter understands her perfectly, loves her completely, and thrives under her unconventional but extraordinarily effective care. Emma beams with pride, her small chest puffing out as the judge validates everything she tried to explain. In her testimony, this powerful adult, someone with the authority to make decisions about her life, finally understands what Emma has known all along. Her family is perfect exactly as it is. Therefore, Judge Hendricks announces, her voice ringing with finality, I hereby award primary physical and legal custody of Emma Rose Martinez to her mother, Sarah Martinez, with the finding that this arrangement serves the child's best interests in every measurable way. The courtroom erupts in applause from Sarah's supporters, a thunderous sound that seems to shake the very foundations of the building. Sarah collapses forward, her shoulders shaking with sobs of relief and vindication. Emma throws her arms around her mother's neck, while Ranger rises to place his massive head across both of their laps in a gesture of protection and celebration. But Judge Hendricks isn't finished. Her expression grows serious as she addresses Michael directly. Mr. Martinez, you will be granted supervised visitation rights, but only after completing a minimum of 6 months of counseling focused on understanding and accepting your ex-wife's condition. You must demonstrate that you can support your daughter's relationship with her mother rather than undermining it with your prejudices. Michael starts to protest, but his lawyer restrains him with a firm hand on his arm. The message is clear. He has lost more than custody. He has lost his daughter's respect through his cruel campaign against the woman who raised her. Furthermore, the judge continues, this court orders that the custody arrangement include provisions for Ranger's continued presence in Emma's life. He is not merely a service animal. He is a family member whose bond with both mother and daughter is essential to their continued well-being. As the legal formalities conclude, Sarah finds her voice for the second time that day. Thank you, she whispers, the words barely audible, but carrying the weight of infinite gratitude. Thank you for seeing us. Judge Hendricks nods with deep respect. Mrs. Martinez, thank you for showing this court and this community that love speaks in languages we're only beginning to understand. Your family is not broken. It is beautifully, brilliantly whole. The afternoon sun streams through the windows as Sarah, Emma, and Ranger make their way through the congratulating crowd toward the courthouse exit. Photographers and reporters wait outside, but for once, Sarah doesn't flinch from their attention. She has nothing to hide anymore, only a story of triumph to tell. As they step into the golden afternoon light, Emma looks up at her mother with shining eyes. Mama, she says, using both voice and their special hand signals simultaneously. We won, didn't we? Sarah nods, finally finding the words that have eluded her for so long. We won, baby girl. We won because love always speaks the loudest, even when it whispers. Hand in hand, with Ranger trotting proudly beside them, they walk toward their car, and toward a future where their unique family will be celebrated rather than questioned. Behind them, the courthouse stands as a monument, not just to justice, but to the revolutionary idea that families come in forms as infinite and beautiful as love itself. In the end, the most profound victories are won, not with grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but with the quiet persistence of hearts that refuse to be broken, voices that speak without words, and love that conquers every obstacle placed in its path. Their story will be told for years to come, not as a tale of disability overcome, but as a testament to the fact that the strongest families are often forged in the fires of adversity, and that the most beautiful communication happens in the spaces between words, where love lives in its purest form.